Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rebirth Summit 2026 Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Kay Miller, host of the Harmony Principle podcast, where I spotlight changemakers from around the globe. I guide ambitious moms to restore their natural rhythms so they regain the energy and capacity to hold the lives they've built. I'm honored to be selected as an interviewer for this international summit featuring 100 plus inspiring stories of transformation and rebirth. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Crystal Griffith. She is the go to strategist and soul guide for medical mom warriors, a Jesus loving, sweet tea drinking, 3 times best selling author, international speaker, and certified heart healing and business coach. She equips moms of medically complex children with clarity, courage, and custom game plans to move from overwhelmed to thriving, starting with her signature Real Hope Roadmap consult. She's a trauma informed one to one session that delivers both emotional peace and practical advocacy next steps. Crystal has lived the chaos herself, navigating brain injuries, PTSD, neurodiversity, deployments, marriage strain, and chronic illness. Now she walks with other moms to help them untangle medical messes and reclaim their voice with tools, scripts, and fierce hope. She lives on the East Coast with her wildly creative daughter and loyal service dog, where every day brings a new breakthrough. Crystal has turned her life experiences into a powerful mission to help others. Her story of rebirth is one that will move, inspire, and empower you. Let's welcome Crystal to the conversation. Welcome, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be here with you guys today.
Awesome, awesome. Let's start at the beginning. What was life like for you before your transformation? Can you describe the situation emotionally, mentally, or spiritually? Help us feel where you were.
I used to think transformation meant life would finally calm down. There was a before, there was an after, right? But for me, with a traumatic brain injury from a car accident, so I was my own patient in the beginning, I couldn't even remember my name. I would wake up and I would go, I know I'm safe, but where am I? What's my name? And what does today look like? I had my PhD and all my dreams stolen from that car accident. My personality was just lost. I went from a very extreme extrovert, always being in the leadership positions, to actually being a hermit. The hum of a refrigerator would make me pretty crazy from the type of headaches I was having. I was living in constant chaos, medically, emotionally, spiritually, logistically. And I kept thinking, this is all going to be temporary. It's all going to shift. It's all going to go back to normal. Isn't that what we all think when we're in these hard places? It'll go back to normal. It'll be okay. I just got to get through it. Yeah, that was not my life. I did not have that before and after moment as transformation usually is.
So,
Nothing really changed externally. There
mm,
wasn't a moment that everything was really better. It was this quiet realization along the way that I wasn't going to get out of this. This was the new normal. And how am I going to get through it? How am I going to live differently in it? And I suspect a lot of our audience has probably had some moments where they're questioning if it will ever end in the way that they're walking through it. And I
mm,
feel them deeply because you do question a lot of things. And you're like, is this ever going to shift? Is it going to change? And you hold out hope that it will. When that slow realization comes in, it's probably not going to. So, how do you live with it in those moments? What does transformation look like at that time?
mm, yeah, definitely. When you're in the heart of it, when you're in the middle of it, the thick of it, it's definitely quite a struggle there. And so, what was you said there wasn't really a succinct moment, but what was like the turning point? Where was it that a major moment or maybe some situation actually first that changed to finally that breakthrough? Where did you finally get that? What happened?
The chaos was raging. I was seeing 48 different doctors trying to get out of the pain, trying to fight for survival, questioning God constantly. Like he and I were in the thick of it. You know, that whole Jacob wrestling thing? Oh, yeah, we were wrestling. But really, that's when fierce hope started. for me. Not that things changed, but that I did. Because I think something happens when we begin to wrestle in our hardest moments. We begin to gain clarity and wisdom and asking the hard questions that some people never, I think, have the opportunity to ask those questions about because maybe life feels easy the whole time. But when we have those moments to ask the hard questions, man, things shift and change in ways you never saw coming. So for me, it was learning to have the peace, the faith, the stability, while everything else around me raged, felt uncertain, unstable. And I still have cognitive brain moments, like forgetting words. When I taught for 30 years in higher ed, I would address the whole class. I'm like, okay, we're going to play a little game. It's called Guess What Word Crystal Meant to Say Next, because it would be gone. I mean, it was just out of there. One time, I could not remember the word ice, and I'm like, okay, I know this. Like it's on the tip of my tongue, right? I said, ice in the hard form, because ice was nowhere in the brain at all, right?
Mhm.
So you learn to make those shifts and changes and have fun. I have found laughter makes a huge difference in transformation because not only do you have to laugh at your situation sometimes, you're like, I could not make this stuff up if somebody paid me. Or would my life actually be on a Hollywood screen? Would people actually believe that was true? Like that whole inspired part, would they think that was just Hollywood making it up? And I just have to laugh. My friends laugh with me, and we have the best time. There are adventures in Crystal's world. Because transformation looks different for everybody, right? So for me,
Mm.
the breakthrough really came in understanding new normal. I'm gonna get through in the best way that I can. And it's really never gonna look the same. And if we're going through transformation, do we really want it to go back to the old?
Right, correct. Yes. We want to transform. We want to move on to something better and different. And that's part of transforming, not staying the same or reverting. We don't want to regress. Definitely not that.
Exactly.
So, what did your transformation feel like then? Take us into that internal process. Heard you talking about the fierce hope. And did you have fears and other breakthroughs, healing decisions? And what were the steps forward through that?
Fear is very real. As much as we want to say perfect love casts out all fear, it does. But fear as a human being exists. And we have to own that sometimes. Because honestly, the first step to any kind of healing is self-awareness. It's realizing what you're dealing with so you can handle it, so you can put it in a different context, so you can look for the transformation. So, one of the stories that I often thought about while I was walking through this was actually Daniel in the lion's den. You know, God didn't remove the chaos. And can you
Mm.
imagine the fear he had? And his eyes had to stay on him in the middle of the raging storm, right? Now, he definitely had a before and after moment. He got out, right? But while he's in the middle of it, did he really know that he was going to get out? You know? And
Probably
and
not.
think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like they're in the fiery furnace. They're walking in the heat. There's a lot of fire. How did they really know that they were going to get out? And then suddenly, in the middle of those chaotic moments, when the world feels like it's off kilter, God shows up. And for me, that's fierce hope. That really is my pivotal moment of breakthrough when I realized, even in the hardest moments, God is still with me. It might not be the ways I want him to, it might not be doing the things that I want him to do, but I am learning, I'm shifting, I'm changing. And so if God doesn't remove the chaos immediately, and there have been seasons in my life where 10 years of infertility, 4 years of these migraine headaches, 24 years of a crazy marriage, right? There's going to be seasons that you're going to have in your life that feel like, oh, Lord, one more day of this. I can't handle it. And that's when we realize, even in the darkest depths, he's there. And even if some residue lingers, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego still had to come out of that fiery furnace and they still were under a dictator. Daniel came out of the lion's den. He was still under a crazy king, right? So even if the residue lingers in your hard moments, God's still there. And he's shaping that, and he's helping you look for new ways and new opportunities. And I had no idea 30 plus years ago, a TBI would set my stage to today talking about medical mom warriors and chronic illness and caregiving and Bill of Rights and what all those things look like today for people. But he
Mm.
did. He knew that we were going to get through it. And he knew
Exactly, exactly.
that was going to get used.
Yes, that makes me think also, I always loved going back to the butterfly. That's a metaphor I love using because the caterpillar actually like liquefies in that cocoon. And we complain about all the stuff we have to go to. None of us have been literally liquefied. We may feel like we're being liquefied, but to trust through that process and to be able to emerge as that butterfly, like that's what I feel like a lot of us need to kind of hold on to. And that's that fierce hope you're talking about when that caterpillar goes in there. It has no idea what's going to happen and what's going to happen on the other end, but it trusts the process.
That is
So,
exactly right.
yes, yes. So while you were going through your process and dealing with everything, who or what supported your journey? Did you have people? And obviously you leaned on your faith, but any other tools or practices that helped carry you through?
You know, that is such a great question because oftentimes we think faith and hope are just about just getting through, just keeping your eyes on him. But my reality is, I figured out I had to, one, surrender my expectations of what life was supposed to be like now. That's hard.
Mm.
That's a grieving process. I had been accepted to a PhD program at a college I had always wanted to go to for a career that would have set me for the rest of my life. And I had to grieve those losses. I was told I would never be able to have kids. All I ever wanted to be was a mom. In the middle of all of that, right? I wanted to have a kid. And I had to grieve that. And things became redeemed though. Like what I do today and what I did teaching higher ed in colleges for 30 years, I never saw coming, ever. But what a joy it brought to my life. And I never would have been there had it not been for the car accident, had it not been for what I had to walk through, right? And so those opportunities that we think are the hardest become these places of redemption and restoration that we never saw coming, and ways that we can help people that we never even thought of. And
Mm.
so, because of that, I had to also make peace with my new normal. I think we all have to, right? I also had to forgive my broken body. That's a hard one for people because when you're walking through the hard moments, there's a lot of forgiveness you have to offer. And sometimes we think it's just about forgiving other people, but my body was not cooperating and my brain wasn't cooperating. And I was so angry at times because I knew it could be different. But why wouldn't it be? Why was it so hard to get through? And so that forgiveness, we often have to offer ourselves, our bodies, our thought processes, of the expectations that we had to lay down. And believe it or not, we have to forgive God.
Mm.
Like nobody ever really talks about that. I'll talk about it all day long. We have to forgive God. And we think, oh no, that's not biblical. Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Jesus in that garden, he was like, is there any other way? Could we find another way? And God's like, nope, this is it. And you signed up for it. But did I really know what I was getting into? You know, and so it's okay because look, his shoulders are as wider as the universe, right? He can handle our temper tantrums and our anger and our frustrations, and we have to give them to him. And so
Mhm.
as I was doing that, I wasn't settling, I wasn't resigning myself. I really just was no longer going to deny my new reality. And that way, I could move forward. Because when we're denying what's happening, we can't move forward. That offered me the opportunity to find structure, support systems, and tools. And just in the areas that you talked about alone, but I also added the holistic. I'm a big holistic person, and some of those tools that are available to us out there have kept me walking upright, have kept me clear in the mind, have helped me with pain. practical ones, and just honestly, today using AI to create better conversations with doctors. People haven't thought about that. Medically, finding better doctors, ones that actually hear you, listen to you, want to partner with you, and aren't scared of the holistic, right? They know there are other opportunities other than just a pill or surgery. And then relationally, we need friends. We can't do this without good, solid soul sister friendships for me. And I have several that I can count, and I depend on them desperately, right? And they're the ones that tell you the truth. We need friends who are not going to sugarcoat it. We need friends to say, okay, get it out of your system, but then we got to move forward. And that's not always easy to hear because you really just want to have a temper tantrum and you want your pina colada and you want to be able to just sit by a pool and let the world go on without you for a moment. Uh, but those are your friends that say, you've got this. And you got a kiddo depending on you, and you got to get out of bed and you got to go handle life. And in those moments, man, friendships make the biggest difference. And then the last one is family. I have been fortunate. I have a very close-knit family. And even though I lived 3,000 miles away from them because we had a military life, I could call them, they could listen, they could send support as they could. And many people don't have that. I am so lucky to have that. And that did help me greatly. But for those who don't have that, I want to speak to you for a second. There are resources and tools available, and they might be hidden. I will tell you, they're not always overt. But if you get in touch with me, I will help you find them in your community. I'm helping somebody right now in the smallest little town in Oregon that has no resources. But I found somebody, crazy as it is, in Alabama that can help us find the right resources. So I'm here to help whoever I can find more stability in their life because you have to have the structure, you have to have the tools to support that fierce hope.
I love it. I love the tools that you shared there, from forgiveness all the way down to community and AI. So that's really, really great that you dove into all those different aspects of ways to support yourself in your journey. And so, where are you at now in your journey? Can you share with us what's different about life? How has it changed? Um, more clarity, things like that.
For me, I still live in a very medically complex reality. I have a kiddo with 27 diagnoses. So I went from me being the patient to her being the patient. So the chaos hasn't disappeared. Every day is a new adventure, like I mentioned in my bio. And yesterday I put her in a car and I said, we're going to find a beach because we just needed to take a little mini adventure. And sometimes you just need to do that. You need to change and shift your environment. But with that fierce hope, and that's my anchor, that's my structural foundation, is that fierce hope, right? In all the ways that I've learned to build stability in my life, I know I'm not carrying everything alone. Doesn't mean it doesn't always feel like that sometimes, because it does. Those appointments, the diagnoses, the unpredictability, those haven't disappeared. But in fact, some of those areas have multiplied, right? And so it does feel like it can grow and sometimes it can get more out of control. But that's when we have to come back to the fierce hope. That's when we have to come back to our anchor, our systems, our support structures. How are the things that I have set up? Do I need to adjust them? Do I need to find different tools, better tools? Do I need to tweak the tools? What can I do to make sure that my life doesn't feel out of control, even though it is out of control at times, right?
Definitely, that is key. The feeling. If you can manage and harness the feeling, you can do so much more instead of just living in that moment. So, how are you using all of these experiences to help others, like your business, your mission, the work you're doing today, because of what you've been through? Can you share more with us about that?
So in the big COVID year, my kiddo had a pretty substantial issue happen. She kicked her legs up, fell out on the floor, and was paralyzed for 9 months. And I realized that I was going to need to find a way to help other people. And so in those moments of all the advocacy skills that I had prepared and learned along the way for myself, I was now really using for her. And I built Medical Mom Warriors, and I ran a couple of summits. I realized coaching these families takes a special nuance because if you're not living a medically complex life, you're probably not going to understand all the pieces. And the fact that your daughters and your kids' friends live in scrubs, and usually they are at hospitals or waiting rooms. And so those different pieces come into play. So I built Medical Mom Warriors with the intention to help them. The roadmap consult helps them identify all those layers of structure. And then right now we're building the medical stability blueprint, where there's a bill of rights for not only caregivers, for those who are chronically ill, because we're not understanding today how many people have been affected, not just by the CV, but also by other things like Lyme disease. And that's a lot more prevalent than people realize, as well as long haul symptoms. And then other pieces that they're having in their lives. So, what are their rights as chronically ill? What are the rights of caregivers? Because we have so many caregivers. Over 63 million people in America alone are caregivers. That's a substantial number. And if we don't get them the structure that they need, they're going to burn out. So, how do we support them in the middle of that? So, that's what that medical stability blueprint is all about. Really helping the medical moms, the caregivers, the chronically ill find their anchor in their storms.
And finally, Crystal, what message do you have for someone that's still stuck or in pain? If someone's listening who's where you used to be and dealing with some of the things you're still dealing with today, what do you want to tell them?
If you're still in the middle of it, the exhaustion, the isolation, the confusion, the fear, right? Even the anger, you're not behind, you're not failing, you're just carrying more weight than the average person, and you're feeling very overloaded by everything that you're having to think through and process and deal with, not just for yourself, but for somebody else. And so you don't have to wait for everything to just calm down. You can find that fierce hope. You can build those support structures. You can stand again. And most of all, you can dream again. Because this dream that I have today, I never saw coming. So you have no idea what's still available to you. And so it will meet you in the fire. And God is so faithful to redeem and restore 100-fold to what you never even expected. And there's countless miracles that I've experienced in my life along the way that just would take your breath away. My kid, as one of them, the fact that I'm even here today, another. And He has them for each of you. And no one is without exception. He has them for every single person listening to this broadcast. Every single person that's going to hear the replay. He has them for you. And so the biggest thing is, why don't you start by asking yourself, what am I carrying that could be supported with tools, with support of other people, with connection, with community? Because at that moment, we can begin to build your structure for your medical blueprint to help you. Transformation, it isn't always after the fire. It's really about who you become inside it.
I love that. I love it so much. And all of the little nuggets you dropped about fierce hope and everything else, Crystal, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your powerful story. Your journey is definitely a beacon of hope, and this has been another incredible conversation on the Rebirth Summit 2026, Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Kay Miller, and it's been an honor to host this interview as part of this global movement for healing and transformation. Stay tuned for more interviews from courageous speakers all around the world. Until next time, this is Rebirth TV signing off.